Hello Automators, thanks for tuning in again. I'm Brian from Automate Your Life, and today I'm going to take the frustration out of automation by saving you time and showing you my smart kitchen. Now, today I'm going to take you through a number of devices that I have in my home and how those devices are saving me some time. So let's get started. So let's start over here at the corner of the kitchen. Now you can see the gateway for my Wise lock right there. That's actually for the Wise lock that's on my garage door, but it's just sitting here because it's in close proximity. Now the Sonos Play 1 speaker here is used in many ways. Number one, it can be included with Amazon's voice assistant or Google's voice assistant in terms of speakers or playing on speakers. I use it for Chromecast the most from Google Play Music. Now the other thing that you can do with that is with Samsung SmartThings, you can actually trigger custom notifications, which I'm going to show you in a moment here. Now, the Philips Hue Go right here is attached to a Philips Hue hub, and then that shows red whenever I have an alert in the home. So I can have a security event, or I can have a number of different events, such as what you're about to see here in a moment with the fridge door. Now, up on top of my fridge, actually, you will see the Nest Wi-Fi. Now, the Nest Wi-Fi, this is an access point, and it is set back there for a specific reason. I'm including it, or I'm putting it at the back, because you're supposed to actually stay about 30 centimeters or a foot away from any Nest Wi-Fi or any router, really. Now that provides the entire kitchen and really my upper two floors with strong solid Wi-Fi, and it keeps all my devices connected from Wi-Fi. Moving over to the fridge. Now this is an interesting thing. Right here is called a sensitive strip. Now, a sensitive strip works as any other contact sensor, and this is attached to my Samsung SmartThings. Now, you might have just heard actually my alarm for the fridge door being open. Now, that magnet right there is actually attached to this contact sensor right here. So they will, with this point right here, be showing a closed basically when the fridge or the freezer door is closed. Now I have a very similar installation actually on my fridge, so you can see this right here. It's the same exact one. Now my fridge is looking a little sad here, but right here what you can see is a temperature sensor from the same company, Sensative, and this is a temperature and a light sensor, so you can use that in two ways to trigger different automations. And again, this is all attached to Samsung SmartThings. Up top inside of my pantry, and based on just a contact sensor opening and closing this door, that light will turn on and off. Let's get even more interesting. Now what we have right here, this is action tiles on a Fire tablet, and this allows me to control my entire smart home through the different panels. I can go back and forth, turn things on and off throughout my home, and see the different statuses. So you can see that I don't have motion here in bathroom actually, and then the illumination is actually 0. We also have humidity, temperature measurements. That's actually off of one sensor in my smart home. I can view my cameras from this kind of a display, and I have a whole tutorial on that. Now, how did I actually stick it up here? So this is a really simple installation. I like to keep things pretty simple. You can see just the USB cable all the way to here, and I actually had to put this on developer mode, and that allowed me to leave the panel on all the time. Now I'm using this tape right here. This is called POAC, and it's two-sided tape. I think it cost me about 30 bucks, and it's an excellent tape. Now when you put it on surfaces like this, it never moves. So that's my installation of that, and down here is probably my favorite device in the whole kitchen. You can see my hand sanitizer right there. Always good to have these days. Now, number one, this is my biggest display in the kitchen. It's a full interface for control, but in a lot of cases, what this is used for is to get media in the morning. I can see the different news stories, and I'm also able to make things like video calls and play music. Now, the default speaker for this is actually including my Nest Wi-Fi up there, and then it's also including this speaker, and it includes that Google Home right there, and way over there on the TV is a Chromecast as well. So probably the three biggest things that I use this Nest Hub Max for, because the speaker is so great. It's down here, and it's also reverbing off here with some of the bass. So it's actually directed off the wall and it reflects out into my space. So it's an amazing speaker for this space. Now, what I will oftentimes do with this, number one, the light control is very quick now with the new updates. I really like this new update from Google. You can see per room that I've set up in the Google Home application, I can go make those adjustments very quickly. Now, the other thing that I will oftentimes use it for, other than that media, I can bring up, or other than the music, I can bring up YouTube videos and different content here. I can also cast to this display. So with my Google Pixel 4, which I'm actually using to film this, I am able to cast a lot of content here or over on my TV where I have the Chromecast as well. Now I can also bring up all my different cameras that I have in my place, and I have Wi-Fi control, and this allows me to actually show guests how they can connect to my Wi-Fi. So there's a speed test, and then I can get to that guest Wi-Fi right here, and having to blur this out because it has the full credentials on it, but they can scan this with their phone to connect into my guest Wi-Fi really quickly. So very, very powerful stuff here. And because it's in the kitchen, the quick link here to the kitchen lights is very powerful. So I can request a recipe for just about anything, and they've kind of started to customize my list for things that I make in a lot of cases. So you can see a lot of instant pot recipes here, things that I've made in the past, and it starts to get really, really well personalized for you. And because of this camera right here, it's actually a home monitoring camera. So really, really powerful stuff. This can be part of your home security system, and it's part of a smart display. So not a lot of people consider that as well. So you can see, again, pretty simple installation. I'm not too big on worrying about cables around this area. Now there's a lot more that you can do with a Google Nest Hub Max. I have other content down below that will show you like everything that you can do with this device. And it is honestly one of the most powerful devices on the planet right now. It's my favorite smart display. You can see how great the screen is and how great it looks in this kind of a setup. So those are my two displays, or my two control interfaces. Now I have this little button actually, and this is from Flick. Now I have a Flick hub upstairs, and you can get this as this is a sticky back basically right here. Now what this is actually used for, or what I'm actually using it for, is to control these. So you can actually turn all of my lighting in my kitchen on and off with a single press. I know that's a little bright for you guys, but this allows me to control the whole scene. The other thing with this button is you can double tap to control other things, and you can hold to control yet a third thing. So I actually have this configured to deal with my kitchen table lights as well, which are from Wise. So I'll show you that in a minute. Here's where we get a little more in depth again. This is a motion sensor from Samsung SmartThings. Now, I could attach it obviously to Samsung SmartThings, but I've actually attached that one to Hubitat in order to control the Philips Hue lighting that you guys just saw on the ceiling. Now over here is what's called a SwitchBot hub meter, and this is attached to a SwitchBot hub, and it gives you, this is the temperature and the relative humidity, which is a very nice feature to have. Now this allows me to just have a visual of how hot it is getting around my oven as I wait for one other device to kind of get finished here. So let me show you what that device is. This is underneath here. That is called the Safira Smart Kitchen or Smart Oven Monitor, and I realize it's a little bumpy right now, but this button, you can see the little automated light here that turns on because actually this oven light is broken and it doesn't work. So I just installed one of those. Now that Safira sensor, what it does is it lets you know if you're cooking, it will actually show you basically the temperature. So very similar to the meter here, and it's still in development, but when it's done, you're going to be able to monitor, and it will actually start beeping when the temperature gets really hot here and maybe someone's left it unattended. And there's actually a plug for the whole range itself that you can get as an accessory to turn the whole range off if things are getting too hot. So you can see those are actually Wise bulbs that I'm using right there. And again, with this LifeX button, or the flick button, not LifeX, if I hold it, it will actually turn those off through if this then that. So that's a bit of a hook. It's a bit of an extra step because it is a Wise product, but this allows me to integrate things. Now, I can use Google to turn everything off, and truthfully, I can use this panel as well to turn those on and off because I've created hooks between Samsung SmartThings, if this then that, and the Wise service as well, which I've shown on the channel many times. Now, if you're like me, you love your coffee. I really do. And the unfortunate part is that you can't automate these things very easily. Now, I did a little hack here. This is not the most beautiful install. I actually had this colored darker color before, and that was in order to just make it look like a button, but I've rubbed that all off. It's just a little 3M strip to give this the right angle for this to press. So what I can do is actually request, and I do this with a routine in the morning whenever I get up from my sleep at night. Basically my alarm goes, and then this, once I've dismissed the alarm, will turn this on, and it starts the heat up process, which we have on a lot of these Keurig machines. So turn on the coffee pot.
Okay, turning the coffee pot on.
So you can see that that's very efficient, and again, this is a product from SwitchBot. Now you can hear it kind of heating up. Turn off the coffee pot.
Okay, turning off the coffee pot.
And you can see how effective this is actually. It's really effective. And before I was using a smart plug to power it on and off, and that would depend, you know, if you have a coffee maker that just turns on and off based on power being supplied to it, you could use something as simple as a smart plug. But for most of us, we have these buttons. So then when I come down in the morning, it's a pretty quick, just install the cup and start it going. That's what I want from my coffee maker. Now, one last thing to talk about here before we get into a couple of appliances that I have. This is the Dbot EcoVacs 500. It's not my favorite smart vacuum, but it does allow me to keep the entire kitchen pretty clean here without having to do anything. The biggest thing I have to do every week is basically empty the little canister on the front of that device. Otherwise, it's pretty much on its own. Now, you did see this Google Home speaker earlier. That is also part of the multi speaker group or audio group that I use in the kitchen here. It's very good actually still as a speaker. And the only other thing that you might notice is I have the microphone muted on that one, and that is because I'm using that as my primary voice control interface. Now I want to show you just one more thing down here. Right at the bottom, that's a leak sensor from Samsung SmartThings. So again, if we do have a leak, what's going to happen is that sensor is going to sense it And once again, my Philips Hue light will go red and my Sonos speaker will tell me that there's a leak. Two appliances here that you might not consider part of your smart home, but save me so much time. The first is this Instant Pot, and honestly, this is the thing that I use the most in my kitchen. And no, nobody's sponsoring me to say this, but this is what I use to make pastas, to cook meat. Unbelievably, it becomes really tender, and I can control it with the Google Assistant. So as soon as I plug this bad boy in, what happens is it connects to my home Wi-Fi, and it's connected to the Google Home application as well as Amazon's voice assistant if I wanted to. And then I can just ask it to start. So I kind of set it and I can walk away, and I can even, when I'm at the store or I'm coming home from work, I can trigger this on and have it basically be ready when I get home. You can set it and then forget it. Now, this is not as sophisticated, but I love it because it makes smoothies for me in seconds, and it's making not only the smoothies, but it's making things like frozen desserts for me. And it's a mode, and then that soup mode, it makes the best lattes I've had outside of something like a Starbucks. And then on top of that, it can actually make soup inside of this device, inside of this blender. So very powerful, not that smart of a device, unfortunately. It doesn't really connect to Wi-Fi or do anything really with any connection. So great smoothie maker, does a ton for me now in my home of making things like ice cream. And both of these appliances have become critical parts of feeding my family. So way over there, I told you there's a Chromecast in that TV, but the other thing that's over there is actually Amazon's voice assistant. Now, I have Amazon's voice assistant on this, so I can say, cancel. And that gives me a full control interface, actually in two places. Now, just that speaker on the left is connected or not muted. So the panel behind me, and then that is allowed to respond basically to my voice assistant wake word. Now, the other thing about that is there's a Fire TV interface on it, so I can request Amazon's voice assistant to turn on the TV like this. Turn on the TV. Now you can see it opened up to my Chromecast, but it'll actually switch in a moment over to the Fire TV because I asked Amazon's voice assistant to turn on that TV. So they'll flip-flop back and forward, makes it very powerful for me if I want to start something on the TV. I have Amazon's voice remote in order to use that as well, or I can use that as well with that device. And I have things like the TinyCam Monitor Pro on that TV, so I can bring up all my Wise cams and any other cameras that I want to connect to that. You can see that little app down there in the bottom corner. One other thing to tell you actually about this. Hey, you guys been asking where Stevie Y is for a long time. There he is right there. I want to see him every day, and when I'm watching my Fire TV or my Chromecast, I want to see that. So that's where Stevie is. He'll be there probably a little while yet, and I'm gonna get this living room set up even better. Now, the other thing I wanna tell you about this Fire TV and those speakers from Amazon's voice assistant, I have a doorbell actually from Eufy, or that's Anchor. Those will actually ring, and that tells me if I'm in this space. I have the base as well for that system upstairs in my office, and that actually will ensure that I have the doorbell ringing on 2 floors. So really, really powerful stuff. And I have smart displays as well in different places. If I want, I can bring that video doorbell up here. Show me the doorbell. So there you go. I can watch this as long as I'd like. If someone comes to the door, I get a ring, I can answer it right here. Can't actually talk through this interface, so that's one thing to maybe consider. One thing that's pretty wild in terms of a device is actually the Samsung SmartThings Vision, which I've started to use now to actually protect the entire space. Now, what this is a camera but it's not actually recording regular video. It's very, very different, and I like it because it's privacy focused. Now, my installation is by no means perfect here, and I've got to do some rework. Again, I'm using that POAC tape, or that tape that I talked to you guys about, but here you go. You can see it's just a USB plug-in, and then it comes all the way up to here, and you want it at about face height, or about level with where most people look. And then it can be used as part of your Samsung SmartThings home monitoring solution. So this is actually my camera that lets me know if anyone is in my place. So there you have it, guys. That's my smart home tour of my kitchen. It's pretty crazy at this point how many devices that I have connected. Now, if you want to see some more smart home tours, other automators have done great things, and to be honest, this community of automators, you've shown me how to do lots of these things, so I appreciate it. And those smart home tours that showed me a lot of what I built in my smart home are down below, or they're on screen, sorry, actually, and they're down below in the description as well. So go ahead, click on one of those. Otherwise, make sure you join Automate Your Life for great home automation content that saves you time and money. Thanks for watching, everyone, and of course, don't hate, automate.